The movie starts with a vessel cruising through the waves, transporting a group of souls on a trek. On that vessel, we spot a small girl titled Amy standing silently, appearing gloomy. At that juncture, her dad, Gong, paces up to her and shocks her with a tiny tuner as a reward. Meanwhile, everyone on the vessel begins appreciating the instance, observing a group of fish darting swiftly through the current. But something feels strange. Those fish aren't just swimming, they're fleeing, as if they're attempting to escape from something horrific. And instantly it turns obvious they are running from a giant leviathan. Within moments, that leviathan starts steering straight toward the vessel, and the siren framework activates, flashing red signals everywhere. Before they can even act, the beast slams IO on into the vessel. The entire vessel leans heavily to one side, and souls begin dropping into the waves, battling to stay breathing. The clip cuts, and currently we view Gong resting senseless on a coast. A guy approaches and rouses him up. Once Gong recovers clarity, he glances around and perceives that multiple souls are resting there, senseless. But his girl is nowhere to be found. Dread rules over, and he begins shouting her name frantically. Just then, a soft speech arrives via the tuner. It's Amy, but before he can completely grasp what she's uttering, the connection drops off. On the opposite bank, there are more survivors, and they begin waving toward each other. But all at once, Gong detects his girl nearby. Except reflecting, he dashes toward her. Just as he's close to gaining her, his buddy blocks him, alerting that something is shifting. Everyone freezes, their eyes wide open in fright. A massive beast serpent surfaces, steering toward them. Before anyone can act, the serpent starts striking, slashing its giant rear, hurling people into the air and consuming many of them whole. Observing this, Gong dashes forward to rescue his girl, but his buddy clamps him, restraining him back. And right in front of his eyes, the beast serpent consumes his girl and then vanishes deep into the woods. Gong drops, weeping in torment. He just observed his girl get eaten, and he couldn't do anything. But then the tuner produces a chime again. That alters everything. Now Gong trusts that his girl can yet be alive. Resolved, he chooses to enter into the woods, but others attempt to block him, alerting him that penetrating the woods signifies certain doom. Despite this, one guy consents to pack with him, and shortly a count of 6 individuals choose to penetrate the wild together. From behind, the rest keep shouting, ordering them to turn back, but they ignore every alert and march forward. Back on the coast, someone attempts to ring a rescue crew, but due to the gap of connection, the ring doesn't go through, and instantly the beast serpent employs its snout to drag him inside as well. At the same instance, deeper in the woods, the serpent returns to its lair. One by one, it vomits the souls it consumed, dumping them out, and then departs again to stalk. The leader recovers clarity. He attempts to locate a path out, but swiftly detects something horrific. There is no escape. The lair is situated deep in the center of the woods. He begins rousing up the others, and steadily everyone recovers clarity. Then he detects something incredible. Gong's girl Amy is yet alive. She rouses up as well, but their comfort is short-lived. Around them are dozens of giant serpent eggs. The leader extends out to tap one of them, but Amy swiftly blocks him, alerting that the eggs could emerge at any juncture. That signifies infant serpents could surface any second. An old guy snatches up a rock and breaks one of the eggs, believing that if they ruin them soon, the serpents inside will perish. But the instant the egg breaks, an infant serpent starts surfacing from it. Everyone is petrified. They swiftly mass behind a giant stone as the infant serpent slides past without steering toward them. But then it spots a paralyzed woman resting nearby, weeping for aid. The serpent instantly steers toward her and consumes her. Meanwhile, back in the woods, the band tracking for survivors hasn't located the serpent or the missing souls yet. Drained, they choose to pause for a bit. During this instance, Erdeni hacks into a trunk, and a peculiar black sap starts spilling out. Interested, another guy sparks a match and accidentally drops it onto the sap. Promptly, flames burst out fiercely. Erdeni swiftly employs a fire extinguisher to wipe it out. The flame is gone, but the vapor starts affecting Gong. He begins to feel faint, his head whirling, and instantly he begins envisioning things. He perceives his partners mocking at him. Then the beast serpent surfaces again, and right in front of him, his girl turns up questioning, "Father, why didn't you rescue me?" All at once, Denny splashes liquid on Gong, breaking him back to clarity. It was all a delusion. That black sap emits a fatal vapor which takes rule of people's thoughts. As they glance back, they view something even more horrific. The trunks around them are not normal. Their limbs are twisting around souls, clamping them firmly. These are not common trunks. They are fatal fiends, destroying anyone they snare. Gong somehow succeeds to bring everyone back to their senses, and they all start fleeing. But one of their partners gets snared by the trunk and is destroyed promptly. Back at the Serpent's lair, the leader and the old guy begin bickering. The old guy faults the leader, uttering that if he had steered the vessel securely to coast, none of this would have occurred. A last titled Sushi steps in, blocking them. She informs them that if they don't produce a plan, the beast serpent will stalk them down and consume them raw. Meanwhile, Gong is yet attempting to contact his girl via the tuner, but there's totally no connection in this dangerous wild. At the same instance, one of their partners paces to a creek to fetch liquid. While filling it, he catches a strange noise, and instantly a heavy mist begins to coat across the woods. Out of nowhere, multiple monster fish start surfacing from the mist, and these fiends can not only swim, but they can glide. Somehow, they manage to mask behind trunks. Then Erdani perceives something vital. The fish are arriving with the mist, so he swiftly guides everyone out of the cloudy zone. And the instant they step out, the fish drop to the dirt, unable to shift further. Their lives are rescued for now. As they gather their breath, Erdeni detects something on the dirt. Giant tracks. He glances up and views a peculiar fiend fixed to a trunk. Everyone is baffled. One guy is close to hurling a rock at it, but the old guy blocks him. Before anyone can act, a huge fiend drops from above. It's a monster toad, and it has already consumed multiple souls employing its snout. Everyone is petrified. The scale of this fiend is incredible, and destroying it appears impossible. They instantly start fleeing, but the toad employs its snout again, snaring one guy. The old guy is close to being swallowed, but he clamps onto a trunk desperately. His grip starts slipping, and the rest dash to assist him. At the same instance, one of them stabs the toad's snout with a blade, but a peculiar liquid splashes onto his face, scorching it promptly. Erdani dashes in and hurls a keen blade at the toad, striking its eye. The fiend lets go, and they seize this opening to flee, but the toad is still pursuing them. And right as it bounds forward, crushing trunks in its path. Instantly, a giant beast serpent surfaces and consumes the toad whole. Everyone is left in total fright. The serpent then shreds the toad apart and consumes it thoroughly, but currently its focus turns toward them. They start fleeing for their lives, but not everyone can keep up. The old guy and the wounded youth who were struck by the toad earlier are shifting slowly, battling to escape. They stumble and drop. The beast serpent moves in, but instantly it turns snared between multiple thick trunks. One of their partners hurls a coconut at the serpent to divert it. That split-second diversion rescues their lives, and the two succeed to flee. But currently, the serpent shifts its focus toward the guy who hurled the coconut and begins pursuing him instead. He barely succeeds to mask behind a trunk. Meanwhile, the rest of the band mass behind trunks, attempting to stay quiet. But the serpent gains their spot and detects one of them. The petrified guy clasps his hands, pleading for his life, uttering, "Please don't consume me." But before he can finish, the beast serpent destroys him promptly. Currently, panic diffuses again, and everyone starts fleeing without glancing back. In distress, they leap into a shallow creek and mass submerge. The serpent loses trail of them and ultimately departs. And for the juncture, they survive again. Back at the serpent's lair, the old guy attempts to find a path out, but every crack fails. Instantly, the dirt starts trembling. Grasping what's approaching, everyone acts to be dead, resting totally still to escape the serpent's focus. The beast serpent returns and dumps the two guys it had consumed earlier back into the lair. Then it detects something alarming. One of its infant serpents is dead. That alters everything. Rage consumes the beast, and it instantly dashes back out, resolved to stalk down whoever is accountable. The remaining eggs begin to split. One by one, they start emerging. An infant serpent surfaces and everyone dreads, fleeing in varied routes. But Gong's girl, Amy, is unable to run. She lands right next to the baby serpent. In a flash that feels unbelievably tense, she gently places her palm on its head. And surprisingly, the baby serpent does nothing. The cause turns clear. Earlier on the vessel, Amy had read in a booklet that if a newborn serpent doesn't locate its parent nearby, it will regard the nearest living soul as its parent. And that's precisely what's occurring here. The infant serpent views Amy as its parent, and it doesn't wound her. However, it suddenly snatches another guy nearby and destroys him promptly. At the same instance, the old guy succeeds to flee the lair, but rather than aiding the others, he dashes away. Back in the woods, the band tracking for survivors persists shifting and ultimately gains a peculiar cabin. Without pausing, they enter inside. Inside, they locate medical jars and grasp something startling. This spot utilized to be an analytical facility many seasons back. There are prints of wildlife on the barriers, all of which were utilized in analysis. Currently, everything makes sense. All these fiends, the serpent, the fish, the toad, they were once common wildlife turned into monsters due to analysis. They locate a tuner and try to contact the rescue crew, but it's ancient and barely operating. Instantly, they hear someone nearing from outside and swiftly mask. Moments later, a guy enters. It's the matching guy who fled from the serpent's lair. Gong instantly questions him about his girl, but the guy feigns, uttering that everyone is dead, that the serpent has consumed them all. Grasping this, he starts to depart, resolved to locate her himself, but Erdeni blocks him. The coming dawn, Gong hears the noise of a chopper via the tuner. Belief sparks again. They dash outside, yelling and attempting to alert it, but the chopper doesn't spot them and glides away. Just then, the tuner picks up Amy's speech again. Gong instantly informs everyone she's breathing, but the senior guy, attempting to mask his deceit, turns Gong mad and claims that each soul perished, informs everyone she's alive. But the old guy, attempting to mask his feign, turns Gong mad and declares that everyone is dead. However, moments later, they all hear the speeches again, verifying that survivors are yet alive. Belief returns to everyone's looks. The old guy, unmasked, dashes away. Meanwhile, the chopper begins nearing him, but instantly the beast serpent surfaces and consumes him whole. Now Gong employs the tuner again, and lastly links with his girl. Sushi informs him that they are snared inside a giant cavern and can hear the noise of liquid swirling nearby. Employing that hint, Gong begins tracking for the cavern. Inside the cavern, multiple serpents are nearing the survivors, poised to strike. But the infant serpent, the one that views Amy as its parent, begins battling the other serpents. At the same instance, Gong gets closer. Catching his speech, Amy calls out to him loudly and he lastly locates her. Without wasting time, Gong drops down a timber link and starts pulling them up. But just then, the beast serpent bounces, furious and unstoppable. Danny bounds in and strikes the serpent in the eye with an axe. The serpent thrashes in agony, and now its focus shifts toward him. Just as it's close to destroying him, another partner strikes and ruins its second eye, rendering the serpent completely blind. Meanwhile, Gong is still pulling everyone up. At that instance, the vessel's leader sacrifices himself, forcing them upward to safety. Gong lastly drags his girl up, and for an instant he feels comfort. But that instance doesn't endure long. The beast serpent bounces again. Elsewhere, the guy who had fled earlier attempts to leave the woods, but doom turns against him. He drops back into the serpent's lair and is promptly destroyed by the serpents. The band lastly gains the rim of the woods, but Erdeni informs them they must separate up or they'll all perish together. Gong dashes in a different route while Erdeni and his partner choose to battle the fiend. Erdeni strikes the serpent, even hacking through its flesh, but it has no impact. The fiend is too potent. Just as it's close to destroying him, his partner rescues him, and they both flee deeper into the woods. They gain the spot where the toxic sap was located earlier. The serpent detects it's a trap and briefly retreats. Meanwhile, Gong orders his girl and Sushi to flee far away. He chooses to head back and aid his friends. As he runs back, Erdeni yells, ordering him to leave. But at that exact instance, Gong pivots and views something horrific. The beast serpent has snared his girl and consumes her again. He rushes at the fiend, striking its flesh relentlessly, slicing it again and again. But the serpent strikes back, throwing him down. Just as it's close to destroying him, Erdeni snatches flame, drawing the serpent's focus, and runs toward the zone coated with toxic sap. The serpent pursues him. At the flawless instance, Erdeni hurls the flame onto the sap, and promptly a giant blast of sparks breaks. The beast serpent burns, thoroughly ruined. The others slice open the serpent's maw, and Gong drags his girl out from inside. She is senseless. Everyone trusts she's gone. Gong breaks down, weeping frantically, but then she recovers clarity. She's alive. And in that quiet, passionate instance, after everything they faced, the nightmare lastly draws to an end.